Hello everyone, welcome to Drawer for Africa, and today we delve into the heart of the Horn of Africa, a region grappling with escalating violence and political turmoil. President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud made his second state visit to Cairo this year. After a red carpet reception from his host, President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, the two leaders saw the signing of historic military cooperation agreement. Next, we shift our focus to Sudan. The peace talks to end a 16-month-old civil war in the country have begun in Geneva, however without the participation of any of the warring parties. The US-led talks were attended by delegations from Saudi Arabia, Egypt, the UAE, African Union, and the United Nations. However, missing from the negotiating table were Sudan's armed forces and the paramilitary rapid support forces of the RSF. Both sides have been fighting since April of 2023, resulting in one of the world's biggest humanitarian disasters. The Sudan army have rejected the invitation to attend the peace talks several days ago, but the RSF have confirmed its participation. Stay tuned, like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon.
In a continuation of what is becoming the warmest period of bilateral ties between Egypt and Somalia, President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud made his second state visit to Cairo this year. After a red carpet reception from his host and counterpart, President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, the two leaders saw the signing of a historic military cooperation agreement.
We are keen on Somalia's stability. Its counterterrorism efforts are successful until Somalia becomes better than it was. The military cooperation and the agreement that was made by the defense ministers of the two countries complements these efforts. I want to confirm that our cooperation aims for development. We never interfere in the domestic affairs of nations. As neighboring countries of the Horn of Africa, it's important to preserve the sovereignty of our countries.
I want to thank you, Mr. President, for the unwavering support of your government against the illegal Ethiopian MOU, which infringe on Somalia's sovereignty and territorial integrity. I'm confident that with the combination of the impressive Egyptian military capability and experience and our own courage and determination, we will advance and succeed in securing Somalia from all threats that pose a risk to our people.
This landmark defense cooperation will see Egypt exchange expertise and knowledge in defense sciences with Somalia. Cairo will also renew the mandate of its peacekeeping forces in Somalia, set to expire at the end of this year.
Somalia is a member of the Arab League. It therefore has a right to assess the joint defense agreement of the organization. Egypt is already training many of the Somali military calibers in Cairo. Egypt provides technical support to Somalia in infrastructure and investment. Egypt's export to Somalia increased 126% during the first 5 months of 2024 alone, and these are indications of the strength of ties between the two countries at this period.
In recent years, bilateral ties between the two countries grew significantly. Egypt now has weekly direct flights between Cairo and Mogadishu. The Egyptian embassy in the Somalian capital has also resumed and expanded its operation.
The presidents of the two countries vowed to utilize their elected international positions to serve Africa's peace and stability. Somalia will be a non-permanent member in the UN Security Council, and Egypt will be in the AU's Peace and Security Council. Adel Mahwi, CGTN, Cairo.
President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud arrived in Cairo for an official state visit for the second time in this year. It came hours after Turkey-sponsored talks between Somalia and Ethiopia aimed at resolving an ongoing dispute over an earlier bilateral agreement between Addis Ababa and the breakaway Somali region of Somaliland. In their January deal, landlocked Ethiopia will gain access to the Red Sea port in exchange for possibly recognizing Somaliland's sovereignty in the future. According to a spokesperson, President Mohamud is scheduled to meet his counterpart Abdel Fattah al-Sisi to discuss a wide range of issues, including Somalia's dispute with Ethiopia.
President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud will have discussions with his Egyptian counterpart, President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, on strengthening relations between our two countries, as well as existing security cooperation and updating regional issues.
The scheduled meeting between Somali and Egyptian leaders comes at a time when Cairo is preparing for the new African Union peacekeeping mission in Somalia at Mogadishu's request. The government has been battling a bloody insurgency by Al-Shabaab, an Islamist militant group, for years now, and sees their eradication as key to securing country's future. Earlier this month, the capital Mogadishu was rocked by a beachside attack in which dozens of people were killed. However, analysts believe the deployment of Egyptian troops to the new peacekeeping movement will not go down well in Addis Ababa, with Ethiopia itself having forces in Somalia as part of African Union's current peacekeeping drive. But Cairo, which has a dispute with upstream Ethiopia over a huge Nile dam, has reiterated its support for Somalia's sovereignty and territorial integrity. Ahmed Kahi, CGTN, Mogadishu, Somalia.
Thank you so much, Arden. Peace talks aimed at ending Sudan's shattering civil war continued in Switzerland on Thursday. Discussions began a day before. However, the military's absence from negotiations dampened hopes for imminent steps to alleviate the country's humanitarian crisis. The paramilitary Rapid Support Forces sent a delegation to the talks, but direct mediation will be impossible without the army present, U.S. Special Envoy Tom Perriello said this week.
We will not be able to do in-person mediated talks with the parties if the parties are not there, even if one party is not there.
Instead, participants including Egypt, the UAE, the United Nations, African Union, East African body IGAD, and experts would consult on roadmaps for a cessation of violence and carrying out humanitarian aid deliveries. The army has said its absence from the talks arises from the failure to implement previous U.S. and Saudi-brokered commitments to pull combatants out of civil areas and facilitate aid deliveries. Mediators say both sides disregarded that accord. The RSF has denied many accounts of fighters attacking civilians and looting. It says it is open to a peace deal if the army engages in talks. In Port Sudan, locals hope an agreement can be reached.
We want peace that satisfies all Sudanese people, without excluding any person. I hope that people go back to their homes, and the rest to support those who have been affected, lost their homes, those whose homes were destroyed. We are supporting anything that would lead to an end of the war, with an agreement of everyone in a way that satisfies all people, all over Sudan.
UN officials have warned that Sudan is at breaking point, and that without a larger global response, there will be tens of thousands of preventable deaths, from hunger, disease, floods, and violence in the coming months. The war erupted in April 2023 amid disputes over how to integrate the army and RSF as part of a transition from military rule to free elections. The world's worst humanitarian crisis has ensued, with half the 50 million population lacking food and famine taking hold in part of the North Darfur region.
Now, for more on this, we have with us Dr. Oluwale Ojewal, Regional Coordinator for Central Africa at the Institute for Security Studies in Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for being with us, Doctor.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, given that neither the army nor the paramilitary RSF attended the talks, what impact has the absence of both warring sides had on the negotiations? What are the prospects for peace?
Thank you so much. I think it is predictable now, because you can't shave a man's head in his absence. It implies that the negotiators are only talking to themselves without the gladiators in the room. So the implication is that the center cannot hold, and the mere anarchy is loosed upon Sudan. I think in the coming days, there will be a need to reassess how far these the mediators have gone, and to actually prioritize where they think they should put the needed action. One is the fact that now that none of the parties are attending, it's about going back to the drawing table, and then maybe now actually putting everybody lining behind the African Union to be on the driver's seats as far as this peace negotiation is concerned, because the parties have actually expressed different reservations regarding the reason why they are not participating in that, even though the people on the ground really need that peace so badly now. So it implies that you cannot most likely arrive at a meaningful conversation and conclusion until you probably bring back the peace talk to the soil in Africa.
Absolutely. Let's look at the specific issues that have hindered progress during the peace talks. What are the main obstacles preventing a lasting ceasefire in Sudan? And why did the RSF suddenly back out of the talks?
Well, they must have their strategic reasons for that. We can only speculate based on what is available in the public domain. And Sudanese have, which some of the people from Sudan which I've personally interacted with have also expressed concern about the way the peace process has been managed, in the sense that it appears that geopolitics have taken over the real issues, which is how the humanitarian consequences of the war is actually biting on the people. So you see various countries with interest aligning in different directions. Between May 2023 and August 2024 this month, about 7 initiatives and mechanisms for peace negotiation have been put in place, and they were largely championed by external actors actors, particularly those within the neighborhood, which Sudanese themselves express the view that they have interest, particularly in aligning behind one party or the other in this. So it implies that there's a need to de-escalate that conflict of interest before you can come to the peace negotiation table. And that is what I think is really the concern of the Sudanese, who are really waiting patiently to have this peace talk. But like I said earlier, the resolution is...
Doctor,
yes,
are you still there? I think I lost you for a moment. Right. Sorry, let me just interrupt there. You have touched on the international players' objectives. How can the international actors, especially the US, effectively support the negotiation process?
For the US to be able to drive a meaningful peace engagement in Sudan, I think the number one thing is to locate everything that they want to do within the African Union. Work with the African Union, because largely most people are going to see this situation as peace being imposed by external actors and not consider the various variables that have actually led to the build-up of these whole crises. Don't also forget that the gladiators in the conflict are both illegitimate. The military actually came into power through an unconstitutional means, and this rapid support force is also not legitimate in the country. So there is a need to build coalition among the Sudanese community in terms of what do they want. That is the number one thing. And that mechanism must be channeled through the African Union. All the 7 peace building, peace negotiation mechanism must collapse into the AU peace and security framework to achieve a lasting peace building, peace negotiation in Sudan. And the United States of America and our allies in the region, or those who are part of the peace negotiation, must also subject their structure to that African Union mechanism to be able to have a solution. And possibly maybe having this negotiation on the African soil, perhaps in any of the peaceful neighboring country, maybe in Egypt or Kenya or any other country within the region. I think that is the way to go. The proliferation of the peace negotiation is not helping the matter and is not helping the cause of the Sudanese people who are actually feeling the brunt of the war.
Yeah.